Okay. Good evening, everyone. Could I welcome you all to our Handsworth Ward Forum meeting? The purpose of this meeting is to discuss matters of interest to all the residents in our ward, as stated in the agenda. Anyone wishing to raise an issue or ask a question should do so by raising their virtual or actual hand, or by using the chat function on the screen. You will be invited to speak. Those people wishing to speak should try to inform the debate currently in discussion. We usually ask for items for the agenda, so could you forward these to Leslie later on? Could I also ask, when not taking part in the discussion, to have your microphones muted, as background noise can be distracting. I'd like to advise that this meeting is being held in public. A recording will be available for public future record and will go on to YouTube within the next 5 working days. So now let's move on to item 3. COVID-19 update. Could I invite Modupe to introduce herself and then give us an update on COVID-19? Modupe, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm Modupe Omonijo. I'm one of the public health consultants here at the Birmingham City Council, working on the test and trace COVID-19 response. So I'll start with the headlines on the COVID-19 infection rates in the Handsworth ward area. From the 18th of April to the 24th of April, we've seen a case rate of 23.6 per 100,000 in the ward, compared to 25.76 per 100,000 in the wider city. This means that Handsworth ward ranks at 38 out of the 69 wards for the number of COVID-19 cases, where the first is the highest and the 69th is the lowest. There were 3 reported cases during that 1-week period within the ward. At the moment, what we've also observed in the Handsworth ward area is that there are 11 COVID-19 champions, and I will talk a bit more about COVID-19 champions when I've gone through the other updates. Currently, Birmingham ranks at 70th highest in the UK for COVID-19 rates, and we're keeping an eye on that as well. We have about 1 to 6 new cases of COVID-19 admitted into the university hospital over the 7-day period as well. So the rates of admissions are coming down, which is reassuring. Regarding COVID-19 vaccinations, compared to the wider city, Handsworth has some lower rates of uptake of the vaccines across the age groups. So at the moment, as we know, the priority age group started with priority 1 for those over the age of 80 years, compared to the wider city. Handsworth rate is 73.9%, whereas in the rest of the city, it's 89.8%. For those aged 75 years and over, Handsworth rate is 81.7% compared to 91.6% in the rest of the city. For those who are clinically extremely vulnerable, Handsworth rate is 75.5% vaccine uptake compared to 80.3% in the rest of the city. These rates are for the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccinations. For the rest of the age groups, because we know that the rollout has been phased, some might be a bit lower for both the city and Handsworth because of the staging of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout, but the numbers are still much for us, at least lower than what we have seen in the rest of the city. So we would want to encourage more people to take up the vaccine, and where people are not sure or uncertain, to speak to their GPs or a trusted professional to find out a bit more and be reassured. And I think this is where the COVID-19 champions in Handsworth ward can be very influential. So the 11 COVID-19 champions that we recorded up till the 19th of April can play a significant role, in helping us to encourage people who might have doubts. And we share a lot of information with our COVID champions via newsletter, emails, and on social media. And we also hold two fortnightly meetings with them, which I tend to host as well. And we are happy to answer any questions or offer any support to people about the vaccines, and very welcome as well to send us emails directly to the inbox for the COVID champions. And do also encourage more people within the community to sign up to become COVID champions. And if people are not sure, we're more than happy to speak to them as well, and just find out what their interests and how they can help to encourage the community to take up the COVID vaccine across Handsworth ward. And just to give a final breakdown of the more detail about those cases, the people infected with COVID-19. So since the 26th of March up until the 24th of April, we've seen across the age groups that the ages that are most affected by COVID-19 are the age group 40 to 59 years old. There 45% of the cases are from that age group, and compared to the rest of Birmingham, that's quite significant, because for the rest of the city, it's 26% within that age group that have been affected by COVID-19. So again, it's worth thinking about if there are champions within that age group in the city, in the ward, who can perhaps share experiences about hands, face, space, and how people can follow the rules and avoid spreading COVID-19. Those are also perhaps the working age group. So it could be people going out to workplaces. There's now more access to testing. You can book and order your home testing before you go out, just to check your COVID status and keep each other safe. The other age group that is high is the 20 to 39 years old, which is similar to the Birmingham rates. 36% of the cases we observed were in that age group. And again, for those who are possibly part of the working population within Handsworth ward, we want to encourage more home testing and more access to the lateral flow rapid test, the 30-minute test for people who have no symptoms, just again to stop any possible spread within those age groups. For the rest of the age groups, the younger generation, 0 to 19, the much older 80 plus, as well as the 60 to 79, the rates are very low. They're all below 10% of the infections that we observed. And then lastly, the rates of infection that we've observed across the ethnic groups compared to the rest of Birmingham. Handsworth ward has about 77% of the Asian ethnic group with COVID-19 observed. Sorry, I meant 77% of the cases of COVID-19 observed were in the Asian ethnic group. The other groups were unknown, actually. 14% did not specify their ethnicity. 5% of the cases were in the white groups. And yes, I think I mentioned that a very small number were unknown. So again, it's just to encourage people to follow the rules. And if perhaps there are COVID-19 champions within the Asian population, within Handsworth ward, who can encourage more people to become champions, to be part of the voice of the community, encouraging and everybody to follow the rules. We recognize that people are getting tired, so we are looking for ways to engage people. Any ideas that you can share with us will be most appreciated. And that's all I have from us here in public health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation, Modupe. Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, Councillor Quinnen, there was a question from Modupe. Naomi has asked the question. She's very concerned about compliance in the area, particularly in shopping centres or where people shop. So, kind of any advice, guidance, or, more importantly, what can be done in terms of the council and the police, maybe?
Thank you.
Okay. Modupe, do you want to take that one?
Happy to, Councillor. Thank you for that question, Naomi. I think you're right. As we've eased the lockdown and moved to the next stage of the roadmap, we've seen more activity, more shops are opening up and more people are coming out. One of the things that we've put in place in the city are the COVID marshals. You might have seen some of them out and about. And although the marshals are there, primarily it's the responsibility of those shops to make sure that people have the right signage, and they've put all the social distancing measures in place. And what we want to be able to see is more people being able to notice those signage, and when they don't, for the shop owners to remind them. I know it can be very difficult because of anxiety about people getting angry or responding in a negative way. So what we want to encourage is more people to feed back to us which parts of the ward you might be seeing those, because our enforcement teams are very happy to go and speak to those shop owners, and perhaps the COVID marshals can be concentrated to those areas as well. One other thing to bear in mind, I think if it's things like face coverings, we know there are people who may be exempt from wearing face coverings. That's quite an issue which we've seen time and time again. So again, it's just to bear with one another and just take into account that we're all in different places and some people may not be able to wear a face covering. But I think definitely the social distancing has to be in place and the shops should have the signage there. So if they don't, would like you to please let us know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, Neil?
No, there aren't, Councillor Quinnen.
No
Modupe, can I just ask the question? So you mentioned that residents can email into the COVID champion email address. So therefore, if there is non-compliance in shops and things like that, is that the same address to use, would you say? Is it best to use that email address?
We're very happy to take those sort of queries or concerns through the inboxes. Well, we do get that actually, because some of our champions who are school parents, when the schools were reopening and some parents were not following the rules, we got a few of them email us through the champions inbox, and we raised it and escalated it within the council. So very happy for people to do that. And even happier actually if people sign up to become champions, because I think
yeah,
absolutely, because it's all part of that. It's the beginning of those conversations. I think one of the things we can do as part of supporting each other is getting more people being the voice of the community and encouraging that social responsibility that we're talking about. I think it's been a long haul for a lot of us, and so it's about just helping each other through this next phase.
Fantastic. And just one final comment from somebody before, I think Joy has her hand up, is just to ask if we could have the email address in the chat box, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I will.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Modupe, for that. Now the next item is.
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor Quinnen. Joy from Laurel Road has a query, a question.
Okay.
She has a raised hand.
Oh, I didn't see. Oh, sorry, Joy.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, go on. Yes.
Can you hear me?
What's your question? Yes, I can hear.
Yeah. Oh, good evening, Modupe. Hi, it's Joy. Just a quickie, really. I'm a COVID champion, and I think one of the things I've found is that there's so much different signage, and where you can download stuff and print stuff off. But I've been asking before for some good quality A4 leaflets. If people have the similar signage in all the shops that looks like official leaflets, yeah, then people can display them in their shops and people can start to recognize. But there are some different things that everyone's got something different, whether it's black and white or whatever. I just think some good quality posters or signage would, you know, that's freely available, not just to be printed off, would be helpful.
That's really, really helpful feedback, Joy. And I think these are the sort of ideas that we've been looking for. You're right, it's got to be consistent and repeated messages that people become used to and familiar with.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to take that back, and we'll explore that and see what we can do. And I think if you don't mind, Joy, I might get in touch with you and just perhaps find out a bit from you if you're happy to help us look at some ideas and see what you think will work, if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's a brilliant suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Thank you. If there are no further comments, then we move on to the next item, policing update. Some of you may already know that Sergeant Stanley has moved on. I welcome Inspector Hill to our Ward Forum meeting. He is here to introduce himself and his team formally, and then give us policing updates for our ward. Inspector Hill.
Thank you, Councillor, and good evening, everybody. I think firstly, apologies. I'm kind of looking after my children at the same time here, so if I get diverted away, I can only apologise. My name is Inspector Nick Hill, and I'm the constituency inspector covering Perry Bar, and certainly one of the wards that I cover is Handsworth. Been in the police service for 15, 16 years, and kind of predominantly response policing, but kind of really looking forward to getting involved more in neighbourhood policing and the medium to long-term problem solving. And I'm looking at a lot of the names on the list here, and I've been fortunate enough to meet quite a few people here already. I think first and foremost, I just wanted to kind of give an update around what we're looking to do, particularly a lot more around the community engagement side of things. I'm aware there's already some really active neighbourhood watch schemes, some really active street watch schemes, but I'm looking to really increase that presence. I'm kind of really quite keen that I want the community voice to be heard rather than us setting an agenda. I very much want to hear what the local communities want from policing and then respond to that accordingly. In relation to the policing teams, we are having an uplift of officers in the near future. So I'm actually going to be getting an extra sergeant and 6 police officers, which is really encouraging because that gives us an opportunity to be far more proactive rather than reacting. So in terms of having a look at some of those issues which kind of really resonate with people, and I know people have been talking about the growth in problems with e-scooters, with dog thefts, and obviously under 25 violence remains a priority for us, in particularly knife crime. There's been some kind of really tragic and some really bad headlines recently, and kind of we want to be doing everything we can, both with ourselves, with the people kind of at this meeting this evening, and our partner agencies to do our absolute best to stop that. So I'm hoping that extra uplift in officers will go some way to assisting with that. We've had an awful lot of activity online over the past 2 weeks. We've been running Operation Rimish in the area, so that there has been force resources kind of within Handsworth and the neighbouring wards as well, having an extra presence on the streets where we've recovered a number of knives, both from people on the street and also in terms of weapon sweeps of local parks. So that's obviously kind of really encouraging that we've been able to do that, and hope that's made some people safer as a result. One thing I'm kind of quite conscious of as well, when we have extra officers, what we don't want to do is over police an area. What I don't want to do is be criminalising people that we don't need to be. So we have been stop and searching more people, and stop and search is a really controversial tactic. But with regards to that stop and search, if people are found with small amounts of drugs, it's all been about referral rather than prosecution. We're about saving lives and taking knives off the streets, not criminalising people when we don't have to. I was listening to Medipa earlier, and everything she said around COVID compliance kind of really rang true to ourselves as well. I think Naomi mentioned some of the information around kind of shops at the moment being non-compliant. We're working really hard with those COVID champions and our partners in terms of engaging and encouraging shops to be compliant. On that odd occasion that they're not, we will take enforcement and we will prosecute, but that really is a last resort. For us to all stay safe, we need everybody doing their bit. I think that's about as far as I want to go today, Councillor, if that's okay. I think my overriding message is I kind of really keen for the community to let me know what they want from me at this meeting in the future, and I can bring that to the table. So if people want me to bring lots of statistics, I can do that. If people want me to give it a real feel for where we are in terms of policing team, I can do that. Or if they want a combination of both, again, that's fine. But I kind of want people to let me know what's important to them, because then I'm in a position to do something about that. And I appreciate at times people get really frustrated that they can't talk to the police, but I will be here. And if people let me know what's important to them, I'll do my best to make a difference to that.
Right. Thank you so much for that information, Inspector Hill. Before I invite the people to ask questions or comments, I will first ask, usually we would have sergeants that are working closely with us at the moment. Do we still have sergeants that we work with in the Handsworth area? Yeah. Are you there?
Sorry, Councillor, can you just repeat that question, please?
Right. I was saying, do we have Sergeant who is replacing Sergeant Stanley, like the way he was our first contact when we've got issues to raise?
No, absolutely. So Sergeant Stanley's moved to the neighbourhood task force now, and we've got a Sergeant Phil Southern who's just landed. I'm afraid he's away for 3 or 4 weeks at the moment, but I will be asking him to attend this meeting in the future as well. So he has geographical responsibility for this area, and he'll be more than happy to assist the community and those that are here today. So it's Sergeant Phil Southern, and what I'll do is I'll put his email address in the bar in the bottom in a bit, so everybody here has got those contact details as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I can see in the chat box. There's a question. There's a question there from Iltaf. I had my car window smashed in months ago, and the police did not care, even give me a call. It seemed that nobody cared. Lack of care. Right. So do you want to respond to that one, Inspector?
No, thank you, Councillor. Firstly, Iltef, I'm really sorry that's happened, and again, I can only apologise if we haven't kind of given you that call in terms of that reassurance. I know at times kind of people will call the police, and those calls are graded in terms of if there's any kind of threat, harm and risk to somebody at that time in relation to if you get a response, but it's still not good enough that nobody's called you back. So Iltef, what I'll do is I'll put my details on here, and if you could just contact me with a method for me to communicate with you outside this meeting, I'll do that to respond to that privately.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions, Neil, or hands up that I might not have seen?
Yeah, there is another question for Inspector Hill. It's from Naomi, and it's a query about if you've been involved in the current exempt accommodation pilot in the ward, and has there been any success in landlord compliance and enforcement?
Okay, Inspector Hill, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, no, certainly, Councillor. Thanks, Naomi. I think we've already spoken about this briefly, but it's kind of useful for me to kind of reiterate the message to everybody. I know certainly for ourselves, we'll look in terms of calls for service and both the exempt accommodation and the HMOs. I know is an issue of kind of growing concern to residents. It's kind of I was going to say it's a relatively new concept, but I don't think it's a relatively new concept now. But it's certainly something which people have been seeing kind of increased growth in. So certainly from a policing point of view, we're beginning to take a look at some of those repeat callers. So whereby we're getting numerous calls for service in relation to exempt accommodation and HMOs. We'll be looking to take action, both in terms of speaking to our partner agencies, in terms of making sure that everybody's being compliant with what they should be doing, but where there's criminal action as well, making sure that we're doing absolutely everything that we can do. There's too many exempt accommodations and HMOs to look at them all, but certainly in terms of those that are causing us the greatest harm, we will be looking at.
Right. Okay. Thank you. If there are no other questions, can I thank Inspector Hill for that? But you are welcome to stay in the meeting to see other officers who are involved with service delivery in our Handsworth ward, if possible.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah. Now we move on to item 5, which is Commonwealth Games Community Fund. Many of us here may already know Neil DeCosta, and for the benefit of those who have joined our Handsworth Ward Forum meeting for the first time, Neil is going to introduce himself, tell us about Commonwealth Games Community Fund, and then respond to questions or comments. Over to you, Neil.
Thank you very much, Councillor Quinnan, and good evening, everybody. Hopefully those on the call know me. So I work for Birmingham City Council in the Neighbourhood Development and Support Unit, along with Leslie. It's a small team in Birmingham City Council. This evening, in regards to Celebrating Communities Fund, it's actually some good news for the ward. There are some funds available. So on behalf of the Commonwealth Games Legacy team, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of the fund, and then Leslie will forward some information, some follow-up information to you. So I'm hoping to be able to share my screen with you, because there's a short video, as long as I can get the sound to work. So let's just try. Okay, Councillor Quinnan, can you see my, is this screen sharing?
Yes, I can see your screen now.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I hope it plays. I hope you can hear it.
Yes, I can see. Yes, I can see, Neil.
Councillor Quinnan, can you hear the can you actually hear the video?
No.
Right, okay. Apologies all. We'll try and get the sound on for you.
To help a local area get games ready. Is there
Every community from Northfield to Newtown, Small Heath to Sutton Coldfield has the chance to celebrate the Commonwealth Games through Birmingham City Council's new funding initiative.
applications are welcome to fund projects?
Can you hear that now, Councillor
Yes,
Quinnan?
yes, I can. Thank you.
Fantastic.
That's very clear.
From £100 right up to £10,000. All proposals must add value.
From Northfield to Newtown, Small Heath to Sutton Coldfield has the chance to celebrate the Commonwealth Games through Birmingham City Council's new funding initiative.
Applications are welcome to fund projects from £100 right up to £10,000. All proposals must add value and align to one of these 3 Commonwealth themes.
Encouraging communities to get out and get active by participating in sports and recreational activities.
Delivering community projects to help a local area get games ready. Is there a communal space you want to improve? Or perhaps you'd like to host a community celebration? We are open to ideas.
Developing community-led cultural events and initiatives that encourage intergenerational activities, celebrating identity and heritage.
So, if you have a project and you want to apply it, follow these simple steps.
First, develop your funding proposal in line with the funding criteria. Then complete the application form by the advised deadline.
Every application will be reviewed by the council. We will be in touch if we need any more information or if we think your application could be strengthened.
Successful applicants will be asked to produce a written or video summary of their proposal so we can better understand how people will benefit from taking part.
And of course, all proposals must comply with the appropriate COVID-19 regulations and guidelines as part of the project or event.
To find out more about this exciting opportunity, please visit the website.
Okay, Councillor Quinnan and all. Right, I've stopped sharing now. I'm going to share just another document with you and just talk about some.
Okay.
Sorry about that, not sure what happened. So I'm just going to share another small screen with you to provide you with some more information.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you, Neil.
Okay, hopefully everybody can see that now.
Yes, I can see.
Perfect. Okay, so Celebrating Community Fund. Hopefully you managed to pick up some information from the video that I just showed to you. So there's £17,500 available to Handsworth Ward over 2 rounds of the funding. Celebrating Communities Fund, it says what it says on the tin basically. It's about ways that members of the local community organisations, etc., can celebrate their area in the run-up to the Commonwealth Games. So there are 3 themes that you just need to take into consideration when you're making your applications. The themes are getting active, and it's quite clear in terms of encouraging communities to get active by participating in sports and recreational activities. Ready, steady, fun. And again, that's delivering community projects within your local area. So, you know, in the run up to the games, and also celebrating culture. Now, in addition to that, there is a ward plan within Handsworth Ward. I understand that it's probably going to need refreshing because it's a year old, but again, there should be a link to, you know, your ward priorities within your ward also. Now, in terms of the amounts that can be applied for, the amounts are anything from £100 right the way up to £10,000. But it's just to bear in mind the fact that the ward only has £17,500 over 2 funding rounds. So again, you know, depending upon what you want to apply for, you just need to think about, you know, the amount and also how it links to the activities that you'd like to do. Now, the first round, just so you're aware, we are taking applications up to the 1st of June. So you've got about a month for those of you that are seeking to make applications within the first round. So it's really important for you to understand that. And within the criteria, we'll give you an idea of things that the fund will not support, in addition to the things that we can possibly support as outlined within the different themes. As I explained, there are 2 rounds. The first round, I think, is the one that people on the calls are going to be, you know, interested in. So, as I say, applications can be made up until the 1st of June. We have applications. You can actually download the application or complete the application online. We, Neighbourhood Development and Support Unit, can also forward you application forms and information relating to the fund. And in addition to that, we have recruited what we call a community specialist. So it's a specialist organisation. which is a combination of an organisation called Birmingham Community Matters and Locality, to help organisations who are wishing to make applications, to give them support and guidance if that is required. And also there are some support sessions that have been organised as well in advance. And what we can do, we can forward you some details and information, you know, for those of you that want to get some advice and guidance in regards to your applications. So just to explain how it works, once the applications come in to the council, they come into the Neighbourhood Development and Support Unit, so it comes into our team, into our inbox. We appraise the applications. If applications need strengthening or more work or what have you, then we recommend support from the support organisation that we have on board. When they're ready, what will happen is we will get in touch with Councillor Quinnan, and a organisation will organise a special forum meeting, which will be around project selection. And those, if you like, interested parties, residents and stakeholders, as well as Councillor Quinnan, will come along to that special meeting. And it's at that meeting that you will vote for what projects that you would like to see take place within Handsworth Ward. So quite happy to answer any initial questions. As I say, I'm just giving you a brief update today and some brief information. But the main thing that I'd like to get over to you is that the fund is live, it's active. You know, you're doing fantastic things, you know, residents and groups within Handsworth Ward. So here is an opportunity to get some funding, if you like, to help with those things that you like to do around your themes, or to supplement some of the projects that you might be wanting to do as we emerge from lockdown. So happy to take any questions, Councillor Quinnan.
Right. Thank you, Neil.
I'll just look in the chat while I'm here.
I'm looking to see if there are any hands up. No. Is there a second round of applications in autumn? Neil, could you see on the chat box?
Yes, I can, Naomi.
Yeah.
There will be a second round in the autumn. So again, it will be around October time that there will be another opportunity to apply for funding. The whole idea is really to have some initial projects that take place, you know, during the kind of summer. And then for the second round, we'll be looking then to have activities that kind of lead up to when the games take place. So that's the reason why there are two rounds.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Just my question. You are saying our Handsworth Ward has got £17,500 to spend on this. My question now is, what might happen if we don't get to 17,500 spent? Say if the organizations put in their projects and probably what is allocated is not up to that amount. So what will happen to the amount?
Okay, so I'm hoping, Councillor Quinnan, that doesn't happen. So it's down to all of us that have an interest in the ward, obviously, to promote the fund to all of our groups and things like that. I think from previous experience and from previous rounds of funding that we've had, I don't think we've ever had that problem. So what I would say is that if you didn't, or we didn't have enough proposals in, you know, to meet that amount, it may be from the applications that come in and the projects that come in, you might want to look at enhancing some of them, for example. But I don't think that we're going to have that problem in Handsworth Ward. I shouldn't think so. And also, Councillor, I noticed that Gail had a question. I'm sorry, Gail, that I didn't see that before. And I'd be quite happy to send you all of the information and the details of the fund, Gail. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and what about if groups prefer to work together? Could you say something about that? Because that's something we saw previously, that some groups prefer to work together jointly. Can you say something about that one?
Yeah, so some groups, so if there's a particular theme that, so for example, the environment. So if you had a number of organizations that wanted to do things around, the environment, so that could be enhancing an area through clear ups or, things like, kind of in bloom projects or things like that. And you had a number of organizations or residents wanting to come together, around a theme, we would encourage that. But what I would suggest is that there's a lead organization, and within the application you can mention that, for example, this organization A is the lead organization, but we're working in partnership with whoever else it might be. So it might be a group of residents, or it might be a number of other organizations. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. And also what you're probably going to find is there may be some individual citizens that might have an interest in doing something. Now, there has to be an organisation that makes the application, that has a bank account as such. So I would encourage in those instances for those individuals to be directed, to a community, a voluntary, faith, or other sector organisation to work with them in terms of getting the application in.
Yeah, and finally, did you say once the projects have been made, they should be sent directly to you?
So what will happen in all of the application information, there are details in terms of who to send the applications through. So at the moment it's all online, either via email or application online, and they will all come to the NDSU or the Neighbourhood Development and Support Unit inbox. So our team will start the process in terms of appraising the applications, but all of the information is available in what we will send out, and also online.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I can't see, are there any other questions which I may have missed? No. Neil, could I thank you for that information? And I'm also asking the voluntary groups and organizations in Handsworth ward to submit their proposals, and I'm also there to help. Thank you, Neil. Now we can move on to item 6, highways. Some highway issues have been raised by residents, so we have Carl, who will introduce himself and speak to us about these services in our ward. Carl, over to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. My name's Carl Randall. I'm the local engineering manager for Birmingham North, which covers the Sutton Coldfield, Erdington, Perrybar, Handsworth, Lascelles wards through to the West Brom football ground. So I look after 23 wards, and my role is within highway safety, traffic management. Myself and my team put in highway safety measures such as yellow lines, humps, cushions, crossings, guardrails, everything the motorist sees and does, and everything we do is to make the roads and the areas safer for people. We do have a small budget per ward, and we also attract money from development and other sources, say for school schemes, etc. So although the budget's quite small, we can attract other money to spend into the ward. Councillor Quinnan's asked me a number of questions which I have, and I've been working on looking into the issues and responding. So I'll go through these first of all, and then through Councillor Quinnan, be happy to take any questions at the end. Yeah. The first one I was asked to look at was an update on the Handsworth ward's ward minor transport measures funding, which, as I touched on earlier, it's £10,000 for a a single member ward, and £20,000 if there's two members, two councillors. So in Handsworth ward we have £10,000 for locally determined highway mitigation measures, highway schemes if you like. And in the year that's just finished, the financial year 2020-21, we predominantly concentrated on the removal of some guardrails on Dawson Road, excuse me, by the grammar school, and we also put in quite a large number of high visibility pedestrian safety rails at that location. That took up the majority of the spending there. We also did quite a large number of disabled bay markings. These are markings on the road for blue badge holders with a vehicle registered at the address if they haven't got any alternative parking such as off-road, driveway access or a garage. And we also did a number of white advisory H markings, which is where people do have a driveway but it's regularly obstructed by others. It doesn't carry any extra enforcement, but it does highlight the access and says to people, you know, park up to the line but don't park over the line. Going forward, between now and the end of March 2022, we have another £10,000 for locally determined highway measures, and myself and Alan Woodcock, who some of you know, who works for me, will be liaising with Councillor Quinnen on requests we've had, requests she's had, come together and agree what the priorities are for Handsworth Ward within the funding that we have. We'll have those discussions over the coming weeks. I was asked to look at an issue around street lighting upgrades. This is where previously our service provider, Amy, was upgrading the highway lighting infrastructure. They relit a large number of roads. The initial 5 years saw over 50,000 new lights go in. That rolled out at another couple of thousand street lights a year. The contract with Amy ended, and we are in an interim arrangement with Kia Highways, and they are doing the lighting now. The issue was around the new lighting being dimmer. Now, this would be unusual because the older lighting, the sodium, the sort of pale yellow, which was okay in its day and at the time and would have met European guidelines and standards. The new lighting, the LED, should be an awful lot brighter, a lot better. There is a case where, for example, if a road had 30 street lights previously, because the new lights tend to be a metre or so taller and the LEDs brighter and covering a wider range, then there may be fewer lights. So if on a road there was 30 lights before, it's no surprise if there'd be 25 going forward, because the spacings could be slightly different because of the lighting output that the new ones give. But if anybody does have concern that a newly lit road appears to be dimmer, and then I can ask Kia to check this, and the lighting levels can be adjusted if for some reason they're not at the lighting levels that they should be. Going quickly on, because there was a number of items, Councillor Quinnen asked me for the process for road closures, and the example given was Crick Lane, where I know you've been having some issues around fly tipping and antisocial behaviour, etc. Our colleagues in the Public Rights of Way team were looking into this, and I believe haven't responded as yet to Councillor Quinnen. At the time, we liaised with West Midlands Police and the Fire Service to see what comments and support and issues they could bring to us. And at that time, which I believe was last year or older, there wasn't anything provided by those two organisations. There was little evidence of fly tipping at the time that was photographed and recorded, but we believe that it has picked up again since. In actual fact, fly tipping across Birmingham has increased significantly. I also look after 30-pound display car parks across the city, and I'm forever having to have fly tipping removed. People, for some reason, have suddenly thought it's acceptable to dump things on the highway and on car parks. And then obviously that's a significant cost to the city council and the taxpayers, because we can't leave it there and we have to remove it. So we're still waiting for further updates on Crick Lane. If it is agreed it could be closed or should be closed, then there would be a stopping up order needed. There'd be a fairly lengthy legal procedure around that, surveys as to who uses it, what's the alternative route, is it onerous. There'd be a consultation, would need the funding for the legal procedure and for the closure. So it can be done, and it has been done, but we're still awaiting information from our public rights of way team before we can proceed any further with this. I've been asked which roads are to be made 20 mile an hour in the Handsworth ward, and the good news on that, and sometimes there are, we do have good news occasionally. There was a rollout of 20 mile an hour zones and speed limits in areas a few years ago, and it's a very expensive process. It's a legal procedure. There's lots of signs needed, huge consultation, but money's been identified again, funding for the next phased rollout. And I'm pleased to advise it does include an area that we know of as B3, which does include Handsworth Ward. It includes some of Lascelles, Soho. It's a very large area, and practically it does include an awful lot of roads. There's the funding for the surveys, investigation work, that will take place, and then hopefully the funding will be there to actually then implement it on all of these roads, and then monitor the result of that, and to see if people are adhering to it. So that's hopefully good news for that. I haven't got a timeline, just that funding's identified to do the detailed feasibility study on it. So yeah, hopefully we can have a 20 mile an hour all round the roads that desperately need it. I've been asked about narrow roads where cars are unable to pass each other, cars parked on both sides, resulting in arguments, Mexican standoffs, etc. And what are our plans to resolve this? We haven't any immediate plans. We haven't any funding for works of this nature. The most obvious thing that we would do on occasion is to make some roads one way. But again, it can be quite an expensive and time-consuming process. We would need to identify the funding first, which may be £10,000 for a road. We would need to consult with all the residents, emergency services, including police, fire, ambulance, NHS, hauliers association, taxi association, because making a road one way can work, but there are a number of roads in Handsworth that are very long, and it's not always popular to make a long road one way, because people at one end that would be the most affected would then have to go quite an onerous route to either leave the property in the direction they would have wanted to go, or for when they're returning. We also have instances where if a road's one way, the speeds can increase because they know there's no oncoming vehicles. So sometimes we're inclined to put the foot down, and that leads to injury collisions. It leads to requests for traffic calming, such as humps and cushions, which again comes at a significant cost. So we have no immediate plans or immediate funding for that, but it is something that we're aware of, and potentially in the future, a bit like the 20-mile-an-hour rollout, there may be something we can do in the future on that. Moving on to an issue which is not just for Handsworth, it's for Holyhead Ward seems to struggle with this, along with many other places. People using the wheelie bins to reserve parking spaces. Now, I know Les Williams is due on the agenda shortly and may know more than me on this, but there are two ways to look at it really. Are the wheelie bins obstructing the highway, in which case Waste Management, as the owners of them, get the waste prevention team or whichever to write to the people to instruct them to remove them. What we believe this would be is it's misuse of a wheelie bin, and then the waste prevention team would engage with the residents to try and stop this. Basically, nobody can reserve a space, whether it's with a wheelie bin or cones or whatever. People, the highway, people have a right to pass and repass. And utility services obviously can send notice to us for works, and they can put their barriers and traffic management in order to do works. But no, people cannot use the wheelie bins. It's a misuse of it. I don't know if waste prevention can fine them for this or what exactly it can lead to. But it's something that we're aware of, and if it comes to me as a highways officer, I refer it to my colleagues in waste management or waste prevention team, and hopefully we can get the message across that this simply isn't allowed. If we know space is at a premium and everyone wants to park as near to their property as they can, but there is no right to do that. And it really is first come first serve on parking if you haven't got an off-road parking facility. Been asked to look at resurfacing of roads, specifically Grove Lane from Soho Road, where it was resurfaced to before, also Holly Road. I have looked on the interim works programme and I cannot see any planned resurfacing for those roads. However, this programme is over several years, and literally hundreds of roads and footpaths are on it, and so it doesn't mean that these roads won't be resurfaced. They're being done in a priority order. There's some roads out there that are in a shocking condition and really need to be done urgently as a matter of safety for public cyclists, motorcycles, etc. And so this is being worked through. I will keep my eye on the programme. I will liaise with you, Councillor Quinnan, and if I have any information on Grove Lane or Holly Lane, then I will inform you. We'll get those done as soon as we can. Moving on to tree pruning. Had a complaint, why is the process so slow? The process around tree pruning is that every tree is in a 5-year cyclical programme. So every 5 years, the trees in the road are checked, and if any interventions needed, then to meet the City Council's obligations, Kia would have to do the work. All the works are prioritised on risk, both safety and liability, etc. We don't want branches coming off trees, coming down in the wind, etc. It just happened in the past. So they're all checked every 5 years, and anything that needs doing it does get done. If outside of that there are complaints about trees or issues with trees that need to be inspected, if they're damaged, diseased, decaying, whatever, then Kia can take immediate action to either remove or make them safe or take a limb off if necessary. that can be done outside of the 5-year programme. If Kia do have to fell a tree, remove a tree for whatever reason, the replacement normally has to be done within 12 months, unless there's a good reason. Then they're not generally directly replaced at the same location. There can be an issue with the previous stump and roots underground, but they're normally put fairly close to where the tree was. If it's not possible at all, then the tree is replanted within that same ward. So you don't lose a tree, but you just may not, for whatever reason, have it back in the same location. Trying to keep it brief. That's an update on the issues I was asked to comment on this meeting today, and I'm more than happy to take any questions on that presentation or any others. I know the chat's come up with a lot of things, but I'm sorry I couldn't read it while I was going through the issues.
Okay, thank you, Carl. I know that Neil is going to help us with any comments that have come through the chat. But before I open for discussion, I just have one question. It's regarding Whitehall Road. Apparently, there aren't enough trees on that road. So, if that's the case, what should the residents do if they feel they need more trees on the road?
Okay, Kia, as Amy before them, are responsible for maintaining the trees. So trees that were there when the contract began, June the 10th, 2010. If any trees are missing, then a request can go to Kia to replace missing trees. If the request is for additional trees that were never there before, then that's classed as, you know, a request for extra, and the accrual costs we have to find associated with the future maintenance of those trees. So I just need to understand, is it a request for additional trees? Or do we believe trees have been...
Can I ask Ilta, could you say something about the trees on Whitehall Road? Is it possible?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Basically, I noted and I informed you that one tree on my side of the road was replaced, just one tree. I can categorically number about 5 points where there have been trees in the past where perhaps they've been vandalized. Residents don't want them outside their houses. They've cut them, they've drilled them, whatever they've done, they've destroyed them. Some of them have even put their own slabbing on the public pathway. Some areas which the council have actually replaced and put, the point where the tree used to exist, have put slabbing or other type of covering. I have noticed that this year there has been some substantial improvements in tree planting. I've noticed it in the area. However, my side of the road, I've only noted one tree, and that is by number 35 that was replaced on that side, on my side of the road. So there's probably about 5 positions where the trees have never been replaced, I feel.
Okay, a couple of things with that, and thank you for raising it. It could be that if residents don't want them for whatever reason and damage or vandalise or whatever the trees, it could be that Kia or Amy before them have put them in a different location. If people are determined to do that kind of damage, there really isn't a great point in putting them back there. if people are going to simply vandalise or you know, kill them. So I'm wondering, have they been planted elsewhere in the ward? Alternatively, I can write to Kia and ask them for this. I wonder if I haven't got a facility to sort of log everything at the moment. Perhaps if you could email Councillor Quinnen with the locations, and then
I'll conduct my own survey, and what I will do is I'll point out the positions by door numbers. The trees have not been replaced for years, and some of them I suspect have been damaged by residents because they've got an issue with leaves. However, like I've discussed with Councillor, maybe the department that actually puts in trees need to look at trees which are perhaps don't cause so much mess, in terms of foliage, those kind of trees. And also, furthermore, I've noticed that in certain positions, the contractor is obviously assisting the protection of the trees for the initial period, so they're putting cages around them, and I think that's working. That's working, because by the time that cage is removed, the tree, has some power to defend itself.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for that. So thank you for that input, Iltaf. So Carl, did you say you want me to drop an email to you regarding this?
Yes, if Iltaf can give you the specific locations, if you drop me an email, I can write to Kia then and copy you in and ask that they investigate the issue with the missing trees and to see what they come back with.
Okay, so could I ask you then, Iltaf, to do that work, forward me the email, and then we take it from there?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so is there anything else to add, Carl? Have you got something else to add?
There's nothing else from me, but I'm happy to take any questions or answer anything in the chat that I may have missed.
Okay. Neil, are there any comments or questions that are in the chat box?
No, I think they've all been covered, Councillor Quinnen.
Okay.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming to speak to us, Carl. And we might invite you sometime again. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, the next item is waste management. Could I welcome Leslie back to our Handsworth Ward Forum meeting? Leslie is going to introduce himself and then tell us more about waste management in our ward and the improvements we can expect to see in the near future. So, Leslie, what more could you tell us about this service? Over to you. Is Leslie there?
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks for inviting me this evening. I am having some issues with.
Okay, where are we?
I can't, so I think Leslie's having a few problems with his internet. So just bear with him a moment.
Okay.
Are you picking me up, Leslie?
Yeah, we are now, Les. If everybody can turn the cameras off. Councillor Crick, could you just turn your camera off?
You want me to turn my camera off?
Yeah, just while Leslie's doing his presentation might help.
Okay, okay. Actually, all right. Where am I?
Les, if you want to carry on.
Okay, I mean, if we have problems, just let me know, please. Just so I don't get broken up. So,
is that all right?
Thanks for the invite, Councillor. Yeah, thanks for the invite, Councillor. It's a brief update really on waste management. Last time we met, I advised that we had some new vehicles in and some new mini sweepers. We're just about to take delivery of some more new vehicles. They're going to be coming in on refuse collection, sorry. They're going to be coming in between now and the end of May. What we got coming in now is our actual refuse collection trucks. You all notice them. They're slightly different to what we've been using up to date. In as much as we're buying narrow trucks, so they can get into the tight places. As discussed in this meeting, parking is a real problem at the moment, and it's going to be so for a while yet, we would argue. So what we're doing, we're acting a bit proactive. The trucks are a little bit less, but that won't affect us in our collection regimes. But they're a bit smaller or a bit less wide, so we can get into some of the tighter corners. We're also in the process of recruitment currently. So we're recruiting a number of staff. I think I might have advised at the last meeting that we're doing this. There's a number of ways that we're going to be enhancing some of our cleansing and some of our work within the wards. We're bringing in some extra dumping groups. Across, it's not just Birmingham, it's countrywide. The dumping is peaking higher than it's ever been before. We class that as our next epidemic. It's a problem that we know about. And what we're doing, bringing in some extra trucks and crews and recruiting them to full-time positions to be able to just picking up dumping and dealing with that dumping. What's going to come in hand with that is also some extra bulky collection crews. So again, we're just recruiting to that. So people that want to take part in a bulky collection with the city, we're going to be able to offer a lot more spaces and a lot more ability to come out and pick up your bulky waste for it. What we're also doing with our recruitment, we're recruiting to a new initiative that we're calling Love Your Streets. So we're doing our best and our utmost to get people out working with the public. As we talked about with the Commonwealth Games, and I think Neil, thanks to you, Neil, for putting some links in the chat box. Monies that we can get in, we can come in and embrace with you as well. So if you have a community litter pick, or if we find a bit of waste ground that we can want to change into a flower bed, shall we say, and stuff like that, there's monies available and there's people available now to come and work with you. So if there is anybody or any groups that want to get together and look at that, welcoming people to come and do that with us, and we'll come along. We can actually supply litter pickers and that now if people want to do a bit round by where they live, and we can marry all that up with picking any sacks up that you produce. So when the weather's nice and warm and fine, if we want to go out for a walk round by where we live, we can give you some tools and equipment and gloves, etc., to come out and do that, and we'll come out with you if it's in the daytime working hours, obviously. But if you want to do something on a weekend or wherever as a group, we can support that in many different ways. So I'll get some links sent out so you can look at that should anyone feel that they want to do that. We're also, the other side of our department, our enforcement parts, they're also recruiting, and they're going to be bringing a number of staff in that are going to work a lot closer with us. So where we've got perhaps a shopping area where we've got lots of bags being dumped out through the week, they're going to be in there looking at them dump bags and that, and seeing where they come from, and see if we can't put some fixes in place. And if it's a business, we'll obviously take steps with the business to deal with their waste properly. I think that's about all from me, other than the ward is performing pretty well when we measure it against the other 67 wards. As I said, dumping is higher than what we would like, and we are putting steps in to tackle that. I think looking at the graph that was produced on Monday that we look at, where we've managed our performance since April 2020 to date, we've got about 800 instances of dumping in Handsworth. That's not by far the best, but it's nowhere near the worst. I think our worst is somewhere around the 2,000 plus. So it's not as bad as it could be, but it's worse than what we want it to be. So the steps we're taking will reduce that, and we're doing a no nonsense. If we catch people doing it, we will be fining people. The miscollections for the ward, the residual currently is running quite low. We're really good at residual collections, but we've seen a bit of a peak on recycling. Looking at back at the depot area to see what we can put in place to improve that. But again, compared to many wards across the city, Handsworth is performing really, really well. It's not by far the worst. It's not the best, I will argue, but it's going in the right direction. I'm just going to read through the notes on the side, if that's okay. Well, if anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. I will touch on that what Carl was just talking about with bins on the streets. I'm sure we all appreciate parking's a premium wherever we live these days. People do anything to keep their parking space when they come back from work. We do see it. I think that Neil put a post in there for waste prevention. We can do that. You know, contact them. They'll go out and knock the door and tell people not to do it. We do sit when we're out, and we do come to your properties every week, but we're only there once a week. So the other 6 days when we're not there, there's very little we see and do. So we don't have that power to go out and look or to scout around. But if you use the waste prevention link, they will go out, they will send letters out, they will knock doors if they need to. It is a resident's responsibility to keep their bin on their property, you know, either side of collection day. And you know, we want people to do that. And as Carl mentioned, you know, there's no get out for that. We're not entitled to put bins or barriers or cones or blocks of wood in the streets. So hopefully that's been a bit helpful. I've just seen something from Gail. Do you have powers to issue skips in regular littering spots? We did do this initiative some time ago, and what we found was when we put a skip out, they get filled up quicker than we can empty them. The last time we did it, we started them at 9 in the morning, and we had to pull away at 11:30 on the night. It was just everyone just brought their waste out, so they don't capture the litter. It's seen as the want of a better term, a free for all for everybody to put the rubbish out. So we've tried it; it don't really work. So unfortunately, no, we can't do that. Just put that. I'll just why the bin man put the bin halfway down the road. That shouldn't be the case. Our guys are trained to take the bin from where it's presented and to put it back in a reasonable position. So we might not be spot on, but we should be within a few feet of where it was taken from. If we have an issue like that, let us know. We will speak to the crew. I'm just looking through the notes.
Yeah, could I ask if Neil could help by just reading from the chat box, and then you can just respond to those. Neil, could you help with the reading from the chat box, please?
Yeah, where I can. I think thanks, Les. You've done well to kind of keep up where we are. Yeah. So the kind of general questions and comments are around things like, you know, high levels of litter in the ward. Do you have powers to issue? Oh, well, you just covered that one. Sorry. Let me have a look.
Can I ask Les if you could respond to litter, because I can see Iltaf also asking about the operative, you know, the litter pickers. Have we got those in Handsworth Ward, litter pickers for the roads?
Yeah, so obviously we do put teams out in Handsworth to clean the litter. What we have found, it's, believe it or not, since the the first lockdown in March last year, we found that litter had actually increased, and a lot of that was put down to all shops were closed, but the fast food shops were still open, and people couldn't go in and sit and have you know, some fast food takeaway. And we found that that's actually increased the litter because people will get it and would walk away or stand around, eat their foodstuffs and throw it on the floor. we've got an increased problem with that, and we are looking at it, and it has increased literally on the streets. But yeah, Justin, who you'll know quite well, Councillor, he does his level best to make sure the ward's as clean as possible. But I will be speaking to Justin about if we need to do a bit of extra there and divert some resource to have a good clean up. Now that people are back in work to a degree and the shops are back open.
I just pick up that comment from Iltaf. He says, my road has not been done for last 6 years, and that's Whitehall Road.
So, what road is it, sorry?
Whitehall Road.
Whitehall. Let me look at that one, because I would struggle to believe that would be the case, but let me look when you was last done, and let me get someone to come around and have a clear up.
Okay, thank you, Les. And Neil, is there any?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few queries, Councillor Quinnan, and I think some of them are going to have to be taken up outside of this meeting. So there are queries around penalising fly tippers, if there's anything that can be done. Cameras in hotspots. Cameras is a very, very difficult, area, due to kind of legislation around, cameras and consent and things like that. So there are two there. And why do bin men put the bin back halfway down the road? So there's a question about, or a comment about, the positioning of where wheel bins are left. And there was a comment, I think, about the decision around, I think it's wheel bins to be reviewed. So there are quite a few there, Les, and probably too many for you to pick up. So you can answer what you can, and then the others, what we can do is just send you the details, and then Leslie can recirculate the answers if that helps.
Yeah, that may help. Obviously, I've spoke a bit about dumping and what we're doing, but I can only plead to public people that see that someone coming in that white van overnight dumping. If you've got some proof that you've seen them doing it, if you got it on your doorbell these days, or if you've got a get that information, I promise you, we will find, we will prosecute them people. Obviously, I'm sure everyone understands we can't be everywhere all the time, but we are increasing our waste enforcement. That will go a long way to deal with some of the problem. What's coming with that? Where we've got some regular dumping spots, we will be monitoring that with cameras, and again taking the appropriate actions. So through the summer months, as we recruit and get people in, we're expecting to see a marked improvement, and be telling everybody we find X amount of people in this last 3 months in this area. So it's all in our plans to do. I would suggest, and I did touch on about if the bin men don't leave their bin where they've took it from or very near to, let me know, please. Or if you email Justin, if you'd be happy for that, I'm sure. We will speak to the crew. We expect to be an unseen and unheard service. So you put your bin out, and I'd like to expect you to look in your bin to see if we've been or not. That'd be my ideal. So if we do have that problem, let us know, please, so we can deal with it.
Right. Well, I can't see any other questions, Neil. But I think, can I thank Leslie for coming?
Councillor Quinnan, Naomi's got her hand up. She would like to ask a question.
Okay, Naomi.
It's a really quick question. I understand that there are going to be cameras placed in the ward. Are we going to be able to find out where that they'll be placed?
We haven't quite bombed it out yet, Naomi. We will look at, we'll have a regular spot, I'm sure, and we can also have the same spots ourselves, and where we know and where you know. I think what we've learned in the past is if we tell everyone we're coming and putting it there, unfortunately, it stops the problem for a while. So we have to run a bit discreetly, dare I say it, because people get the idea that we're going to be there and they don't turn up, and the cameras then actually become useless. So we want to catch people in the act, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Leslie, for that. All of us, we would like to see our Handsworth ward cleaner and greener. Thank you so much.
Agree. Thanks for the invite, Councillor. Please all be well and safe, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Thank you. Now we move on to next item, future meetings. Leslie, could you give us details of our next ward meeting, please? Are you there, Leslie? Can you hear me?
Sorry, Councillor, I was on mute. The meetings for the next 12 months have been set. The next one is the 20th of July, the following one, the 19th of October, and then the 18th of January 22. The next one, it's proposed that it's on Zoom. We don't know when we're actually going to be able to meet face to face. All the details are now on CMIS. So the next one will be on the 20th of July at 7 o'clock, and it will be on Zoom.
All right. Thank you very much for that. And could I remind everyone again, if you've got some thoughts for the agenda, please email Leslie. So this brings us to the end of our meeting. And or could I ask, before I close, could I ask if anybody would like to say something? I can't see any hand up. Neil, is there any hand up?
No, not at the moment, Councillor Quinnan.
Okay, and also in the chat box, there isn't a comment that needs responding.
Okay, so there are a couple. Hold on, just one moment. Sorry, I just lost my screen.
I think Gail wanted an answer to a skips and cameras question. We'll get that in a written from Les, if Les has already left the meeting.
Thanks, Leslie. That's helpful. So you know, for residents that have asked several questions around CCTV, skips, etc. As I explained before, there were quite a few questions. So what we'll do, we'll collate them, send them to Les, and then Leslie will send them back out to, you know, all people on the circulation list. So, you know, apologies.
Yeah, what I'd like to say is that the chat for this meeting, for residents, they won't be able to see afterwards, but everything's logged, so I can go through, and all the questions that are in the chat, I will send out to the officers, and I'll send the replies out, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leslie. Could I thank you for your help with all these meetings? And Neil, could I thank you also? So that brings us to the end of our meeting. I can see there, can we reinstate any other business in the agendas? Okay, Leslie, could you pick on that, please?
Yes, of course, Councillor, it was an oversight.
Yeah. So can I thank all of you for joining? Have we lost?
No, you still go.
Are we still there? Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining the meeting, and I now close. But please don't wait for the meetings. If there are any issues, do email me or phone.
Oh, I've gone. Councillor Les Williams has got his hand up. Is that intentional, Les?
Yes, it was. Sorry to be last minute, because I can see Gail is asking the questions. I don't want to leave the person hanging without a question answered.
Okay.
When we say skips, are we talking a bin at a specific spot, not a skip? Because that might help me answer the question.
Okay. Was that from Gail? Gail, would you like to clarify your question? Yes, skips at the end of Rookery Road. Okay, it says skips at the end of Rookery Road.
Yeah, I'm presuming that's litter bins. Let me have a look at it, Councillor, see if it would be out for that.
Okay, regular fly tipping. Yeah, it's a spot. It's a spot. It's the junction of Rookery Road and Anthropos Road. So there's always fly tipping there. It gets cleared and it gets back again.
Yeah. So I've made a note. I'll get it looked at, but I would suggest we wouldn't put a skip out because everybody would use it and it wouldn't be used for what it was there for. We need to deal with the dumping, basically, don't we? The fly tipping. So let's make that one of our objectives when we get people in to get that one dealt with and get it stopped for, you know. So let's take it away.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. So let us then close the meeting, and I hope to see you in the next one. Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Quinn, and thanks all. Thanks, Leslie.
Good night, all.
Good night, all. Good night,
Good
Les.
night.
Thank you.
Hi, Councillor.
Hi, Leslie. Are you there?
Let me just close down the meeting.
Yeah.
I have to. It takes a bit of a time to close everything down. I think everybody's gone. Yeah, I'm gone. Let me stop the recording now.